G20 summit in New Delhi. Yeah, they finally they added the African Union to get in there. Yes. And it got off to a roaring start. Some disagreement about Russia and Ukraine. They had to do is get a well, Russia's exercising their whatever. And they kind of like backpedal on it, condemning Russia. And they get very soft languages about Ukraine and Russia having hostilities. But during the summit, somebody came up with, hey, did you hear? Russia just hit a shopping mall and killed X number of people and destroyed it, and a couple of children to go along with it. And then, oh, hush. And anything on Russia was very soft, and something about Ukraine having rights, but Russia's war. China wasn't there because somebody would start questioning China about their expansion on Taiwan. Wait a minute. They can also expand about the United States. Russia has gotten itself involved in Africa by supporting some regime changes there. That was pretty well softened. The language was softened on that. The Wagner group in Africa, the language was softened on that. A lot of softened language. The India and Russia, that kind of took a backseat to everything. So how much have they say? Well, they're going to try to feed the world. That's the good one. They're trying to help third world nations emerging from, like, China is considered still a third world nation. Oh yeah? And they're sending rockets to where again? The moon? India is that emerging nation until it was brought up that, don't you have a nuclear bomb? Didn't you land something on the moon? Emerging nation? Yeah. So if you have a nuclear bomb, which is not easy to produce, and you have a nuclear power plant, and yeah, and you have all this, really, are you emerging from what? It's kind of like looking at China and saying they're an emerging country. They are. They had brass stoves 5,000 years ago. They were wearing cotton 5,000 years ago, while the Europeans were in skins. The only kind of language they had is speaking to each other without written language. Yes. Really? Wow. But and some of the African things that were criticized that, hey, didn't you guys build the pyramids? Yes. You're an emerging nation from where? You had a language for 3,000 years. Oh yeah, sure, it was pictures, but it still was a language for 3,000 years. You had scribes 5,000 years ago writing things down, while the closest things Europeans got to was hand painting on a wall of a cave. What are you talking about? But again, the summit, was the best they could do. They made. They're still, the old saying, they're divided on Ukraine and Russia. A lot of them want to soft pedal it simply because they deal with Russia. And they don't want something like Wagner Group sitting in their country and disturbing everything. well, Russia, well, that's what Russia's doing in, well, they're in Syria, they're in Ukraine. Wagner Group under Russian control now is in Africa, supplying arms and men and instructions for war. And some of those nations are very touchy in what they say against Russia, for the simple reason they know they're going to be overthrown tomorrow. Oh well, at least they're talking somewhat, and they're arguing, talking. And as I said before, ever so often, somebody will come into a hallway and say, "Russia just destroyed another mall or apartment building, killing 20 people." Yeah. Well, at least get their act together. Who knows? One of these days, maybe Ukraine will be in there, if there's anything left.